I am a docent at the Timken Museum in San Diego, and I am standing in the French Gallery. I'd be very happy to take you around to show you the paintings in this gallery. We're going to do it chronologically, start at the beginning. So let's move to a Claude picture, and it's a landscape. Let's go. So Claude Lorrain is one of the more famous French painters, and he has done this landscape. Here, I'll get out of the way. You can, and this is classic in the sense that in order to have a successful landscape painting, you need 3 or 4 layers in the storyline. The bottom layer is the ostensible interest point. It's big, you get close-ups. In this instance, it's the story of Odysseus being recognized by his nurse by the scar on his leg when he returns after 10 years from the Trojan Wars. But Claude Lorrain has used the cattle and the rest to just be a natural, beautiful scene, no biggie. And then the second level is the indirect stuff. The third level would be your antiques up here that you have in the castles. And finally, on the final upper deck, you have the painting, the sky in blue and clouds. Those are the components that will go into a classic landscape painting. And Claude Lorrain is one of the big ones who handed down for the rest of the French school what to do with the landscape painting. Okay, so here we have another one. Same principle applies. That is to say, what constitutes a landscape painting? This one is by Philippe de Champagne, and he has chosen a biblical theme. So you need it in order to cut the mustard with landscape paintings: biblical, mythical, or historical. If you had any of those components, you've arrived. In this case, it's the story of Jesus healing the 2 blind men that are in this corner of the painting. He's coming up from Jericho en route to Jerusalem, and the gospel stories tell that he stops and heals 2 blind people. And it's a big deal, and an alternative version is a single blind man called Bartimaeus, and he is gracious to him. But it has the same components: the front close-ups, the middle bit with the antiquities, and in this case, the landscape in the mountain, and then the clouds and the blue sky. So again, a landscape with all its components. Okay, so we move on. And another landscape. My goodness, these French words of landscape. Here
I'm a landscape painter.
Yeah. Oh, you are?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, so
no, that's fine. No,
this.
that's fine.
Okay.
It's fun to hear you.
Wow. Okay, so this one is by a Vernet. He painted in the early 1800s. This too is a landscape, but it is a concocted landscape. Normally, he was paid to go run around all the ports of Europe and paint the ports. So he painted this one, but it is a concocted landscape. That is to say, you can see the Arc of Triumph here on this, which would be in Rome. This thing, it looks like the towers in Naples, the Bay of Naples, and so forth. So he's done the ships. It looks like French ships. They're not, they're Dutch. That was who he was painting for. And the lowest level is all the interest that you can see and pick up all the detail. The middle bit with some antiquities, and then of course lots of sky and clouds. So this is Vernet. He did dozens and dozens of port pictures on behalf of the Dutch fleet. Okay. And then on this wall, on the French gallery, we have 2 pendant portraits of the attorney or a lawyer or a judge, whoever he was, clearly legal field. And this is by Lagillière, who was famous for doing portraits. And he did a lot. And people would like to show that they had arrived. So they put these portraits. This would have been Mr. Poupil and his wife. And the idea would be when people came to their house, they would be seen as having arrived. This is important. And so he's holding his law books, and behind him are all kinds of law books. He's in his robes, very arrived man. And then his wife here, equally talented in the music direction. This one is the largest painting. It's called a Boucher. It's a Rococo painting that we have, and the largest one in the museum. And it is a Rococo style by a very famous painter also called Boucher. and Boucher painted up to and almost to the end of the era where the French Revolution hit. What was going on? The king had sequestered basically the nobles in the palace at Versailles. These nobles were bored to death half the time and entertained themselves with fetes and parties and garden things to do and very frivolous lives. They couldn't go home because the king was afraid of treason if they got out of sight. So they entertained themselves, and this is quintessentially Rococo painting. What do we know about it? It is the pastel colors, the rosy-cheeked people, candy box stuff, we would call it, the trees that look like broccoli trees enlarged, and of course a little statue there in the garden. Everybody's playing with each other. Nothing is serious, and this fellow that has collected the flowers in the hat of his love over there and braiding them in her hair is ending up immediately distracted by the next pretty face that comes along. So this is Rococo at its quintessential expression. And he had a student, Fragonard, who did the same thing in the Rococo tradition, where you can see they're out in a garden and with the trees. Beautiful thing, this one with pastel colors and a fountain in the background. But Fragonard, unfortunately, did not die before the French Revolution, so he came back after exile to Belgium or somewhere and restarted his career. He was successful again, fortunately, but this is an example of master and student, but the student was equivalent to the master in the long haul. So when the revolution came, we had a shocking change. All of this pink stuff with the flowers and the prettiness could not continue, and Napoleon was now in charge. They had military conquests, and this painting by Jacques-Louis David is the expression of what came next, which is the neoclassical, meaning they got serious. Compared to the Rococo, suddenly men were supposed to be men, and you got serious about life. And so this story is a wonderful story. This is he is an Irishman named Penrose who lived in Cork. He made his great wealth in trade, and his fellow worshippers said he was getting too high on himself, but he wanted a portrait. He was building a beautiful house, and so he commissioned his portrait from David. The exchange of letters between them is in the archives, and he said, I want a nice painting, but I don't want anything floozy. I don't want something like the pupils had done. And so David writes him back, says, I can do this for you. So he sails to Paris. He sits for David, and who has a sign, by the way, down here in the corner. This one, David Facebat Parisis Anno, the year 10th of the Republic of France, Gauloise. And so this is year 1803. So he does sit, look at the beautiful hands. This is exceptional painting, and you can see why David was as famous as he was in his day. It is exquisitely rendered. The clothing around the neck, the quality of the trousers versus the jacket, it's different. And then the hands are just absolutely magnificent. And so was Mr. Penrose happy with this painting? I suspect so. And he took it home, and it hung there in his house amongst his descendants until 1953. When it went on sale. They had to fix the house, so this got sold. And as a David, Timken acquired it. So we're very lucky, but it is the opposite to what you have in the Rococo. And lastly, in the French gallery, this beautiful landscape by Corot, a Frenchman who loved going down to Italy in the summers, but then he would take his sketchbook that he had worked with all summers and go back to Paris and paint in his atelier in the wintertime. And he did these beautiful landscapes of Italy. And look at this thing. It is, the more you work at this painting, the more intriguing it is. So again, what have we got? We've got the front zone where you have great detail, the grasses, the bushes, they are recognizable if you know your plants, and then the middle part, and then you get the ruins in the middle ground, foreground, and of course lots of trees and skies and clouds. So, what is special about this? Corot, by the way, was always successful as a painter. He was not poor, thank God. And so, when you look at this painting, follow my hand. You're looking at the horse and the fellow on the horse. He might be a messenger of some kind, a stick, but not a soldier. And his hat turns your eye to look at the fellow over to the side here with the red hat cap on. And by the time you look at that fellow, your eyes go right up the tree and over to the treetops and around and down, 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 down. Your eyes hit the antiquities and the buildings rather, and then come on down, 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 and we come across and it starts all over again. So Corot knew what he was doing. He was an expert at this. He was very successful as well. And so we conclude the French Gallery.
Thank you.
Very welcome.